Technology most people have never used could be the answer to healthy eating and peak performance, and Fitbit and Apple are investing. Sano. Jeffrey Wu hasn't gone back to Burger King since he saw the numbers. The trim 30-year-old was at the airport one afternoon when he strayed from his healthy diet and ordered an old-time favorite, a Whopper, fries, and a Coke. Everything seemed fine until a few hours later, when he checked a device usually used only by people with diabetes. The trend lines on the small square display, which tracked Wu's blood sugar levels, normally stayed fairly flat. But after the Burger King meal, they spiked to 3 times their normal levels. Wu doesn't have diabetes, but he says being without that device, known as a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, feels like losing an organ. A self-identified biohacker, Wu ordered his first CGM when he began experimenting with various diets. The tool, he said, gave him a snapshot of the effect different meals had on his body and changed how he thinks about food. Wu is part of a growing community of people without diabetes who are turning to glucose monitors on the heels of a bulk of research pointing to excessive sugar and carbohydrate consumption as the root of many health problems. Sure, everyone knows sugar and fast food are bad for you, Wu said. But you don't see the magnitude. Seeing that really made it real. For many people with diabetes, tracking blood sugar is critical because levels that dip too low or soar too high could be dangerous and even life-threatening. CGMs, which often require users to wedge a 1/4-inch long needle underneath their skin, have not yet hit the mainstream for those without the disease. But soon, a new, more user-friendly wave of blood sugar tracking devices may become available to anyone. A San Francisco startup called Sano is designing a device that would make tracking our glucose as easy as reading the news or scrolling through Instagram. The company recently received a $6 million paycheck from Fitbit, its first-ever investment in a startup. Apple, Google, and other big-name tech companies are also scrambling to create blood sugar trackers as improvements in the technology, coupled with skyrocketing rates of diabetes and obesity, fuel the need for a better tool to improve our health. Sano's device. Sano. Ashwin Pushpala, the founder of Sano, believes his device could eventually provide an instant snapshot of how the food we eat affects our bodies. This kind of feedback could render things like nutrition labels and fad diets unnecessary. Ideally, you'd be able to use it to choose a diet based on real data, Pushpala told Business Insider. The device Sano is working on does not involve a needle and would connect to a smartphone app, letting users could check their blood sugar levels anytime. For most people, the most important moments to do that would be before and after eating, to see how a particular meal affected their blood sugar. In someone without diabetes, blood sugar always rises after eating. But the contents of a meal can strongly affect how the body responds. Eat a breakfast of sugary cereal or a bagel, and blood sugar spikes. After that type of carb-heavy meal, someone might look at their readings, see a dramatic rise, and say, "Whoa! What was that?" Edward Damiano, a diabetes researcher and professor of biomedical engineering at Boston University, told Business Insider. That spike would tell them their food was too high in carbs and too low in other key nutrients like protein, fiber, and fat. On the other hand, if they ate a more balanced meal with protein, fiber, and fat, such as a dinner of grilled salmon, roasted Brussels sprouts, and half of a baked potato, their glucose levels would remain relatively balanced and flat. They'll see how that helps keep things steady, Damiano said. They'll start looking at foods differently. When I first started using the CGM and getting my readings, it honestly felt like I got a missing sixth sense, Wu, who co-founded a wellness startup called HVMN, said. I'd be checking Facebook, checking my phone, and then checking my glucose. Wu started a trend at his company, HVMN. Chrissy Ensley, head of operations and supply chain at the startup, was one of several other employees to start wearing one along with Wu. Melia Robinson, Business Insider. Damiano reasoned that Wu's experience could be common among people who start watching their blood sugar. If that data inspires changes in behavior and diet, it could lead to dramatic health outcomes. The authors of a review of 50 studies on diet and weight gain published in the journal Food and Nutrition Research found that, on average, the more refined carbohydrates, such as sugar, that someone ate, the more weight they tended to gain over the study period. Similarly, the researchers behind a large review of 68 studies published in the British Medical Journal found that the more sugar someone consumed, the more they weighed. In other words, the amount of sugar in a participant's diet could be used to roughly predict their weight, the researchers found. That could be problematic because of the way our bodies prompt us to overdo it on simple carbs or sugar. When healthy people digest carbs or sugar, the process involves the pancreas. That small, sweet potato-shaped organ pumps out insulin, a hormone that mops up some of the sugar floating around in our bloodstream. If we consume large quantities of carbs or sugar, the pancreas goes into overdrive and pumps out so much insulin that we wind up craving more carbs or sugar. Damiano calls this the insulin effect. You eat sugar, then you crave more. High-carb, high-sugar diets have also been implicated in a higher risk of a handful of diseases, including diabetes itself. In a review of studies published in the journal Obesity Reviews, Ellen Black, a professor of fat metabolism and physiology at the Maastricht University in the Netherlands, found links between poorly controlled blood sugar levels, also known as poor glycemic control, and obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. Tight glycemic control is necessary to maintain health and to prevent disease, Black wrote. On a recent afternoon over coffee in San Francisco, Pushpala nudged a prototype of Sano's device toward me. The small, shiny disc was about as thick as a few credit cards. On one side it was smooth and glossy, on the other it felt like sandpaper. That scratchy surface was studded with an array of 400 tiny micro-needles, as Pushpala called them. The idea is to essentially take the surface area of the single, traditional CGM needle and spread it horizontally, resulting in a patch of barely perceptible prickles. Ashwin Pushpala. Wearing it, Pushpala said, would feel like a stiff band-aid. Like several existing CGMs, Pushpala's device would have 3 parts, a disposable sensor that users would wear for several days at a time, the coin-shaped tracker, which gets tucked into the sensor, and a smartphone app that connects to the device by Bluetooth. Pushpala's goals for the product resonate with Adam Pellegrini, the vice president of digital health at Fitbit. Pellegrini sees the $6 million investment in Sano as part of Fitbit's larger pivot to focus on healthcare. The company's other recent moves into the diabetes space include teaming up with diabetes device company Dexcom to make blood sugar data visible on the Fitbit Ionic smartwatch, and partnering with diabetes startup OneDrop to integrate Fitbit activity data into its mobile app. What's been elusive in digital health is consumer health engagement, Pellegrini told Business Insider. I really feel like we could do so much more for people if we just empower them with information. It isn't just the effect of eating bagels, donuts, and cookies that people might notice while wearing a glucose tracker. Sugar lurks in